are still alive. You know it because your heart is hammering, and your body knows it too. Right now, without you doing a single thing, your biology has already declared a state of emergency. Every organ is receiving its orders. Every system is shifting into a mode it was never meant to sustain for long. This is not a thought experiment. This is a forensic breakdown of what actually happens inside a human body, hour by hour, when it is buried alive. Welcome back to Body versus the Brink, where we document the invisible war happening inside you, second by second, organ by organ. Today, we are going deep underground, literally. By the end of this breakdown, you will know exactly what your cardiovascular system does in the first 60 seconds, what your brain does to protect you when oxygen starts running out, and at precisely what point the body reaches a threshold it cannot come back from. Let's begin the autopsy of the living. The moment the lid seals, your amygdala, the brain's threat detection core, fires a signal that takes less than 12 milliseconds to reach your adrenal glands. Within seconds, a massive surge of epinephrine floods your bloodstream. Your heart rate does not just increase, it detonates. In documented cases of extreme panic, heart rates have been recorded spiking above 180 beats per minute in under 30 seconds. This is your body running its oldest software, fight or flight. Your pupils dilate to capture every photon of available light. Your bronchioles expand, pulling maximum oxygen into the lungs. Your blood vessels in your gut and extremities constrict, redirecting blood flow to your brain, heart, and the large muscle groups you would need to fight or run. The problem? There is nowhere to run. There is nothing to fight. Your body has activated a system that requires massive physical output, and you are locked inside a box roughly the size of your own body. The oxygen supply inside a standard wooden coffin, roughly 900 liters of air, gives you somewhere between 1 and 5 hours before CO2 reaches lethal concentrations. But that calculation assumes a calm, resting respiratory rate. In full adrenaline panic, you are burning through that oxygen reserve at potentially twice the speed. The clock is not just ticking, your own biology is accelerating it. Here is where your body does something genuinely extraordinary. As CO2 levels inside the coffin begin to rise, your chemoreceptors, sensors embedded in your brainstem and carotid arteries, detect the shift. They do not wait for you to feel short of breath. They act immediately, forcing your breathing to deepen and accelerate, trying to expel the CO2 building in your blood. This is called hypercapnia, elevated CO2, and its symptoms begin to cascade through you with brutal precision. Your head begins to throb. Your vision may blur slightly at the edges. You feel a rising, crushing sense of dread that is not psychological, it is pharmacological. Elevated CO2 in the blood directly triggers anxiety circuits in the brain. You are not imagining the panic. Your chemistry is manufacturing it. Simultaneously, your prefrontal cortex, the rational, planning part of your brain, begins to lose its grip on the situation. Decision-making quality degrades. Emotional regulation weakens. The brain is a hierarchy, and when survival resources get scarce, the ancient limbic system starts overruling the modern cortex. You become less you and more instinct. This is by evolutionary design. The rational brain costs oxygen. The survival brain runs leaner. Your body is making a trade, deciding which version of you is more likely to keep the heart beating for another hour. The cortisol that began flooding your system in the first minutes has now reached sustained toxic levels. Under prolonged acute stress, cortisol production does not plateau, it compounds. Your immune system begins to suppress. Your digestive system shuts down entirely. Blood flow to the gut has been cut to almost nothing, and your body has no intention of wasting energy processing a meal you may never have again. Your muscles, starved for glucose they cannot burn through movement, begin breaking down their own proteins for fuel. This is catabolism, the body consuming itself, and it begins faster than most people would expect. In extreme survival situations, measurable muscle degradation has been documented within hours, not days. Your body is not trying to conserve you. It is trying to keep your heart and brain operational for as long as physically possible, and it will sacrifice everything else to do it. The psychological dimension becomes critical here. Documented accounts from survivors of accidental burial, mining collapses, avalanche entrapments, describe a phenomenon called perceptual narrowing. The mind, overwhelmed and oxygen deprived, begins to collapse its awareness down to a single point of focus. Some survivors report a paradoxical calm, not peace, but a kind of enforced simplicity. The brain, running out of bandwidth, stops processing everything except the core directive: do not stop breathing.
Between hour 3 and 5, depending on body mass, metabolic rate, and initial oxygen volume, the body crosses what physiologists call the critical hypoxia threshold. Blood oxygen saturation, normally sitting at 95 to 100%, begins dropping below 80%. At this point, your brain cells are no longer receiving enough oxygen to maintain standard electrochemical operations. The hippocampus, your memory formation center, is among the first structures to show functional impairment under hypoxia. This is why survivors often report fragmented or absent memories of their final conscious hours. The brain is not recording because it cannot afford to. Next, motor control begins to fail. Fine motor function degrades first, the hands, the fingers, then gross motor control, then coordination, then consciousness itself begins to fracture into intervals. But here is the part that reframes everything. The human body does not simply shut down, it negotiates. In severe hypoxia, the body can trigger a state called hypoxic vasoconstriction in the lungs, a reflex that actually attempts to optimize blood oxygenation even as total oxygen availability collapses. Your heart, remarkably, is the last organ to surrender. Cardiac tissue is so metabolically privileged, so wired for survival, that the heart will continue beating even after the brain has lost the ability to generate conscious thought. Your body's loyalty to keeping you alive outlasts your awareness of being alive. Let's close the case file. The human body, subjected to live burial, does not panic arbitrarily. Every response, the adrenaline surge, the CO2-driven anxiety, the cortisol flood, the perceptual narrowing, the final cardiac endurance, is the output of a system optimized over millions of years for exactly one outcome: survival. Not comfort, not rationality, survival. What makes this forensic analysis so striking is how little choice is involved. You do not decide to have your heart rate spike to 180. You do not choose to flood your own brain with cortisol. You do not elect to cannibalize your muscle tissue. These are not responses, they are commands, issued automatically, executed completely, without consultation. The body buried alive is not a body in crisis. It is a body doing precisely what it was designed to do, running every protocol in the correct sequence at maximum output for as long as the physics of oxygen and time will allow. Whether that is enough, whether survival is even possible, depends not on the body's willingness, but on external conditions it cannot control. The biology is always willing. The biology always fights. It is the environment that decides whether the fight can be won. And that distinction is the most important thing this forensic breakdown can tell you about what it means to be alive.
If this breakdown put your own heartbeat in your ears, that means the biology worked exactly as intended. You just felt a fraction of what that adrenaline response actually does. If you want to keep exploring what your body does at the absolute edge, make sure you hit subscribe so you do not miss our next forensic case. I want to hear from you. Which biological system surprised you most in this breakdown? The brain's oxygen rationing or the heart's refusal to quit? Drop it in the comments and stay with us, because next we're documenting what happens inside your body during a real hostage situation, minute by minute. Thanks for watching Body versus the Brink, standing witness at the threshold of biological collapse. See you at the edge.